Awesome. For those who may not know us, my name is Tatiana. I'm from the Pharma Collective, and then we also have three others.
Yes, my name is Matthew Otule. I am a fourth-year pharmacy student here at Texas Southern.
My name is Milka Tawalda. I'm a PharmD MBA student at High Point University.
And my name is Joseph Kalu. I'm a fourth year from Howard University.
Awesome. And we have the pleasure of having our amazing guest speaker, Dr. Megan Khaleifeh. And I will give a brief introduction before she talks about how she is so amazing at having a great work-life balance. I have been following her since she has been a fellow at Rutgers, and I've seen the just different work-life balances and how she just does everything with grace. So Dr. Megan Khaleifeh is currently a senior manager in global medical communications at GenMab. She completed a 2-year postdoctorate fellowship in global medical affairs oncology at Merck through the Rutgers Fellowship Program. She gained experiences across medical affairs and medical information, medical strategy, content and training, supporting multiple solid tumors. She earned her PharmD from the University of Kentucky College of Pharmacy in May of 2020, and Megan lives in New Jersey with her husband and their dog. Outside of work, Megan loves to spend time teaching bar and Pilates fitness classes. And with that, I will bring it with Megan and just thank you again for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for that very kind introduction. It's been great to see you throughout your journey from being a pharmacy student to applying for fellowship process. So congrats to you, as well as I'm sure many others on the call tonight have gone through similar things, and just here today to share with you all my journey and things that haven't worked for me, because it has not been perfect throughout the whole journey, but things I've learned from, and hopefully have knowledge to share with everyone here this evening. So I will go ahead and start sharing. I just have a few slides to kind of guide the conversation and provide some kind of proactive steps and tips that will hopefully benefit most of you, but please feel free throughout any of the presentation to stop me at any time if you have any comments, questions. This is meant to be very interactive and discussion based, so always open to feedback, comments, anything throughout. So let me go ahead. I'm like used to using Teams, so I like get confused sometimes on Zoom, like remembering where everything is. Let's see. Okay, let me know if you are able to see my slides.
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And then let me make sure the presentation mode. Okay, so you can see presentation mode. And then I'm not sure if I will be able to see the chat. So if there are any questions that come through,
Sounds good. We don't see presentation mode quite yet. It looks like it's just your slides.
okay. Okay, is that good though? Like how you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, I will go ahead and jump right in. So I will be presenting on the balancing act for our wellness month, and just really talking about different ways to cultivate a healthy balance into your very busy schedule as students, and how to really set yourself up for a long and successful professional career. So the objectives I want to focus on today for our short time together are to recognize imbalances and the negative effects of them, to discuss steps to create a proportional balance in your life, and to identify ways to succeed and reach your greatest potential.
Dr. Khaleifeh, I don't think the slides are progressing.
Oh, they're not? Okay. Thank you so much for. So you're just seeing the first one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. let me stop sharing and then reshare because I did have like an error pop up. My apologies.
No worries. We've had tech issues so many times.
Yes. Okay. Can you see PowerPoint again?
Yes, I can see the PowerPoint.
Okay, now I'm going to hit it in presentation mode. Okay, now it's on the title slide, correct?
It is, but it's not in presentation mode again.
Yeah, so I think you may have to go into stop sharing, go into presentation mode, and then share
Or is it like,
screen that's in presentation mode.
Mm.
I'm sorry, now it's saying okay, did you lose me for a moment?
Just a small second.
Okay. Maybe that will help like clear everything up. So let me try again.
No worries.
Okay. Third time's a charm, right? Okay. So PowerPoint, and then let me know if it's in presentation mode yet. Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay. We're making progress. Okay, so title slide. Now can you see objectives?
Yes.
Hey, yay. Okay, already making progress there. So as I had mentioned, these are the objectives that we will be discussing in our short time together. And I think I was lastly mentioning just different ways to succeed and reach your greatest potential in your professional development to your career journey. So given Tatiana had given a very nice background of myself, but I just kind of outlined a timeline of my development and how I've gotten to where I am today and just the different aspects. So I am a PharmD by training. I graduated from the University of Kentucky back in 2020 and then went on to complete a postdoctoral fellowship through the Rutgers program in oncology medical affairs. Then throughout that journey, I definitely found that's kind of where you start getting your feet wet, learning what your career is going to be, taking on this different type of work load per se versus being just as a pharmacy student on your API rotations. You're really getting that autonomy and ownership. And I think that's really important to set yourself up for success throughout your career and creating a very healthy type of balance throughout your fellowship. So I think being involved in different activities is very important. So that's where it kind of led me. I have a strong passion for staying very physically active and I enjoy working out. So I always had a passion to become a fitness instructor. So I completed my training in 2021 and became a bar and Pilates instructor. And so it's something I do more for fun as a hobby on the side. But I think it's really helped me kind of keep that good balance of still doing other things outside of just my work that bring me like joy and happiness and really break up kind of that constant, got to be working, got to be driving different deliverables throughout your fellowship. And then to where I am now. So I completed my fellowship in the summer of 2022, where I then transitioned into a position as a senior manager in global medical communications at GenMab. So I'm supporting oncology, all of the publications and Congress content there. So it is definitely even different than fellowship, but it's been a really great experience to kind of continue using the skills I've developed throughout my fellowship now into a full-time position and try to continue to build upon what I started during my fellowship. So to kind of switch the gears of what we'll be talking about today, I wanted to start with just sharing the definition of balance. So balance is defined as an even distribution of weight, enabling someone or something to remain upright and steady. Another definition of balance is a condition in which different elements are equal or in correct proportions. So I feel like typically in our minds, we think of balance as being two things that are equally distributed. And I think that's where we sometimes get caught up in creating this perfect work-life balance, which is really unobtainable. I think where I bolded the correct proportions is what really we need to retrain our minds to think about balance. So you're never going to have like, oh, I'm just studying for 50% of like my time, whether you're a student or if you're like going on your appies, I'm going to commit 50% of my time to this, 50% to my own like personal wellness and family. It's just like being realistically, it's never going to work out that way. You're going to have different requirements pulling you in different directions at different times. But I think it's about finding the correct proportions to kind of keep everything in checks and balance, but it's never going to be equal. So I think retraining your brain really kind of helps set you up for success in a way that you're not trying to reach this unobtainable balance. So just kind of setting the stage with that. So I'll be referring to it more as like a proportional balance. So when you have this unproportional balance definition, it really leads to being unobtainable to achieve those type of things. And that's where you fall out of balance and start experiencing these negative effects, which will ultimately lead to burnout. And I think we all have been there in different parts of our journey, whether it's from undergrad to pharmacy school. And I think those are times when it's important to check in with yourself and be like, what is it that led me to this feeling of burnout that I can like do better next time to prevent that? Because I know, remember like going back to pharmacy school, as you all mentioned, like midterms right now, you're studying a lot more. So a lot more of your energy is focused on studying versus any other part of your life. And like, it's okay, we've all been there. But it's like, what are the small positive things you can add in to kind of help weigh out the negative effects that you're feeling? So just to kind of touch on a few of these, I think one thing that's really important to just highlight is this hustle culture that we really are like being fed, that it's you constantly need to be working more, harder, and that's going to put you like higher than other people if you're working the most, working harder, like never stopping. And I think that's what really fuels you to burnout. I think especially for my generation, being a millennial, it's all about like, oh, if you're working after hours or the more work you put in, like the better you are. And I think that really just sets like an unrealistic expectation and will lead you to those like feelings of just like being inadequate and not really being the best you can be in your role. And I think it's just important to like recognize that up front, that that's not how it should be. I think you can be just as proactive in your role in less amount of time. So comparison, I mean, we all, I'm sure, do this throughout pharmacy school, comparing people's grades that they get, comparing throughout the fellowship process, like interviewing, like, oh, they got an interview here, I didn't. Like, I can tell you, I know Matthew, I believe, told me he got the Takeda Purdue fellowship. I applied to that one. They didn't even give me like a phone interview. So it's just like one of those kind of games, like you can't be comparing one person's journey to yours, and that's going to lead to kind of just this unbalanced just way of living. Okay, next, lack of prioritization. And this one I'm sure we all deal with. It's very easy to kind of get off task, but that's something like if you have high goals that you want to reach for yourself, it's really all about that prioritization. So if you aren't great at that now, that's something you can recognize and work on. I think then poor quality work. So if you're putting in so much constantly, then the quality of your work is going to tank. Like you can't always produce the best work if you're not putting that rest and re-energizing back in. Changes in mood. So I think just overall, it's kind of a negative cycle. Then you're not feeling adequate enough, like you're comparing yourself to other people. You're leading up to this feeling of being unfulfilled where you don't necessarily feel like you're reaching your highest potential. And really it puts you into like a more less motivated state because you're always working to do your best and hardest, but you're not seeing the positive effects. And then where I really want to highlight, this can all have negative impacts on your health, your mental and your physical health. So I think being in this state can definitely lead to like negative thoughts about yourself, can lead to depression, anxiety. All of these things definitely can have a huge impact on your mental health and your physical health as well. Especially, I know if you're studying for exams or interviewing, like you may not be getting enough sleep, you may be stress eating, you may be binging, you may be just not prioritizing yourself, and you can find yourself spiraling and looking for other ways to kind of combat these feelings and impacts that you're having. So I think it's really important to kind of keep a check on that because ultimately it's going to make you less productive. So I'll stop going on the tangent of all the negative effects and try to switch to how you can really rebalance these in a more proportional way. So I think first 3 steps that are important to create this proportional balance is first being honest with yourself. What are the areas in your life that you're probably not giving enough to, or maybe giving too much to? I think and listing those in kind of a priority, like what right now is most important that has to be done. Like let yourself know that, but then the other things that can be set aside, set those aside and use that extra time to re-energize yourself, whether that's getting extra sleep, whether that's like getting exercise. But I think it really just taking a step back and being honest with yourself and your priorities right now. Second, setting boundaries. So this is something definitely I feel like sometimes is more challenging for me myself, is I have a hard time saying no, and I want to always do more, be more, and you really have to learn when to step back and like realize what you can do. And really, if you're saying yes to everything, then you're not going to be giving 100% quality work to everything. So I think it's really important to establish those boundaries, whether it's boundaries in your personal life, if those are impacting your professional life, whether it's like your school and study or career, maybe you need to set extra boundaries in that. Or if you're just focused on studying and stuff so much that it's taking away from your personal life and being able to interact with others. So I think this is really important. And then lastly, feeling comfortable to ask for help. I think this is so important. I think this is what makes you take that next step when you feel like things are out of balance. So whatever area that you feel like you're out of balance in, you using that to confide in someone, whether it's a friend that really has your best interest, asking them to like help you with that certain area, whether it's something school related, going to whoever within that area that can help you. If it's professional, maybe finding a mentor, manager, whoever. But I think always asking for help is something that's so important in taking that next step. Then next, just want to provide some more kind of just healthy ways to think about reaching your greatest potential. Because I mean, I know all of you, we all have that similar kind of drive. You have high goals, you're wanting to make such a difference and impact in the world, and we always set that highest standard and goals for ourselves. So it's not realistic to just be like, oh, set aside this time for yourself. No, like you still want to reach your goals, you still want to do your best. So what are ways you can do that? And I think, like I mentioned earlier, prioritizing tasks. So this will be, I mean, this will always be an interview question. So good now to figure out how you best prioritize and have an answer ready for interviews on this. But I think this is really important, especially now in my role and being at like a smaller biotech company. You're going to have a lot more on your plate. And I think it's learning to prioritize your time and your tasks. Like I can't get to everything in a day, but that's okay. Just being present in the moment and realizing like, what do I need to prioritize today? So I think really figuring out what works best for you, whether that's writing down lists, scheduling time on your calendar, like setting aside time, like, oh, I'm going to whatever you need to get done, whether it's studying, setting a calendar invite for yourself, like studying for 2 hours, whatever it is, finding that what works for you. And then setting realistic goals, like don't set yourself up for failure by setting something that you know is not going to work for you. Like if you're saying like, oh, I'm going to stay up this late at night for this many hours, like to study, to do better at an exam, like you have to be realistic with yourself and like what is healthy for you. And then managing your time, I think that's something too that I even still like struggle with. There's easily things to get distracted all the time. And if now going in the office, it's easy to, someone will be like, oh, you want to go grab lunch, go grab coffee. And really you have to figure out the balance between that. Like, okay, yeah, I can do that for only this amount of time versus like taking a whole hour, things like that. And then taking the breaks, I think this is important. So if you're working in the evenings or studying, whatever it is, set aside 30 minutes to watch a show that you want. Like you need to take that brain break mentally, and no one's going to give you that time and give you that permission to take that break. You have to make that decision yourself and decide, okay, I'm going to take a break to go take a run, go walk, go exercise. No one's going to tell you, oh, it's okay, you can stop studying now, go ahead, take a break. That's something that you have to create in your own schedule, but it's going to make you more productive in the end. And I think that kind of leads into the practicing self-care. So really making sure, I know I'm someone that I have to get my sleep. My brain does not work if I'm not sleeping. I will get sick. My immune system gets run down. And then that's where you ultimately tank and like you're not able to do any of these things. So I think whatever it is for you, figuring that out. And then I do have a few slides later with just like different ways that you can continue practicing this self-care. But this is something else I wanted to really focus on that I had heard recently. So there are 5 states that you have that you work in basically to accomplish the tasks that you need to get done. So the first one being focus. So if you're studying for an exam, you're going to be really focused. If you're trying to learn something, you're trying to accomplish a very important task, like you're in this very focused state, but you're not always going to be focused. You can't always be super focused for like 6 hours straight. That's not going to happen. So you're only in that state for certain tasks that you need to get done. Another state may be energy. You may need to be more energized. Say you're giving a presentation. You want to really be able to fuel the audience and get them excited and provide this energy type of state. If you have an important presentation, or you need to motivate others, whether you're leading an organization or meeting, you're going to be in this more energy type of state. Presence. So you don't need to always be focused on everything you're doing. So I think this one can kind of fall more into like your relationship aspect. So it's so important that you're still being involved with friends, family, loved ones, spouses, whoever it is, just being present there, being present in that time that you're taking for yourself, whether it's to decompress, watch TV, read a book. That's more just a present state. You don't have to be super energized or focused. And then planning, I think this is what really also will help you accomplish different tasks, is planning. So is it planning ahead for what you have in the next month? Is it planning ahead for interviews? Is it planning ahead for your study, your exam schedules? So there are times when you need to get planning done so then you can further accomplish your tasks. And then one of the most important states to be in, but is sometimes the hardest, even for me myself, is rest. And you cannot complete or do any of these other states unless you rest. And I think this is where you are renewing your mind, rebuilding, re-energizing to really fuel into all the other states that will allow you to get the task that you need done. So I hope you just maybe think about this next time you're trying to plan out different things you need to get done, recognizing which state you really need to hone in on and at what times of the day. Like if you focus better in the morning, try to plan those tasks that you need to do in the morning or evening, vice versa, whatever it is. And then next, so I just wanted to share some ways to prioritize your wellness, and just, I'm sure you obviously hear these all the time, but just a little reminder on different things that you can do. So meditation, spending time just being present in the moment, making sure you get restful sleep, establishing a regular exercise routine. So this was something very important to me. I mean, dealing with anxiety throughout probably all of college and pharmacy school, I did recognize that exercise was one thing that really helped my anxiety, and kind of talking back to like you live and learn and go through time. So I know for me, leading up to pharmacy school exams, like studying a lot, and I wouldn't take time out to go work out, I recognized my anxiety got so much worse, and it just really impacted everything. So I went from there and created time in my schedule to work out so I felt better, whether it was just a 30-minute workout, shortening it. But this was something that kind of also led to my journey to become a fitness instructor, because it was really important to me and I wanted to kind of share this with others and motivate them to stay kind of like energized and get into this regular routine that really can help you mentally just as much as physically. Reading. So if you enjoy reading books, I think this is another great way to kind of just turn your mind off from the other things that you may feel obligated to and just let yourself decompress. Watching a movie or binge watching any shows, I definitely do that. That's kind of a nice thing on the weekends, like decompressing. As I mentioned, taking a walk, going for a run, and then connecting with friends. I think really using this to evaluate your relationships, the people that are wanting what's best for you. And you know those are healthy, like in balanced relationships that maybe would be there to say, hey, I think you're doing a little too much. Maybe you should step back and like, let's relax, like do something self-care related. I think that's really important. And lastly, just wanted to end with a couple of things. So with all of these kind of steps and tips I provided, I hope you will think about them next time when you are planning out your task, and as you go throughout the rest of the month, the rest of the school year. And they're not going to be perfect the first time. So that's why I wanted to say you're going to refine, reflect, and repeat. So if there is something that goes wrong, just reflect on it, realize how you can change that, improve that, and then repeat how you can do it better next time. And then I actually had saved this on my Pinterest board the other day when I saw this. Remember, if you avoid failure, you also avoid success. And this really stood out to me because I feel like there's definitely, it may not always look like it. I know, especially on social media, it may look like everything's perfect, but you definitely will face adversity and failure. But that's when you're going to come back even stronger and be even more successful. And with that, I'm going to end here. If there are any questions, I can't really see the chat. Oh gosh, well, I think there are some. Okay. I can stop sharing and then try to go through any questions.
Awesome. It looks like we were trying to keep track of some of the questions too. Thank you for the overwhelming audience response. And thank you so much, Dr. Khaleifeh, for just such an insightful conversation. So first we can go to Marcus's question. Do you have tips on how you can identify when you're going down that negative path? And also before, if anyone does have any questions that they would like to come off with mute, you can feel free to raise your hand and then we'll call on you as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think when you may feel like, I mean, I definitely can feel this, when you're feeling stressed with things coming up, with all aspects of life, whether it's your school, your career, it's all going to have pros and cons to them. And I think it's figuring out how to manage the cons and different aspects of the pros that you can pull out that are things that can give you more joy. So if you are feeling like, super stressed with my studying, for example, whatever it is, take something from the pro bucket of that wellness, whether one of those tips like reading, watching a show, and carve out time for that, and spending time with people that you feel like would pull you back and really like put you back in check, so you're not gonna keep spiraling down. But I hope that kind of answers your question.
And I don't know if Marcus wants to come off, but that's a great question, because I mean, I realize, even from some of the examples from the past, like some of my friends, they kind of like, they replace one negative with a positive, or it might seem like a positive, but then they kind of treat it like a negative. So it's kind of hard to kind of see or recognize those. So that's a great question there, Marcus. Going on to the next question, I believe it was Taylor.
Okay.
Yes. And so the question from Taylor was, how do you set boundaries with friends and families? Sometimes non-pharmacy friends don't really understand how stressed Taylor, we all are. So that's a really good question, Taylor. So how do you kind of set those boundaries with those friends and families who aren't in your situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think for me, my parents, I'm really close with my parents, being an only child, and like they weren't familiar with pharmacy, and there was a lot of time that I would have to sacrifice, like spending time with family. And I even had a few ex-boyfriends at the time that were not in pharmacy, and it's like trying to manage, like, no, I have to study, like they don't understand that. And so I think part of that, like, I think family, they're always going to be there for you most of the time and like love you, whether you can't make that time for them. But I think it is also another way to like kind of evaluate those that you have supporting you, because if they're your true friend, and really like want what's best for you, they're gonna support you even if you do have to spend that extra time like studying and not able to say yes to everything to them. But I think another way you could do that would just be like, I can't say yes to this now, but hey, let's plan something when my exam's over, which my exams will be over like in a week or two. Like, let's go ahead and like set time aside for them. So you're kind of giving and taking, like you may say no to something that they're asking you to do, but then you can provide a different kind of response to them. So it's like, oh, maybe for my study break, let's go grab coffee, things like that. Just provide like a nice, like kind of trade-off per se. But I think it is hard. And I know it seems like everything right now, like taking over your life, but it's only for such a short time. And then trust me, guys, the best feeling is when you're out of school and you do not have to study anymore, and you can have like your free time in the evenings. And I mean, you'll get a taste of that probably during your appies, which is like really great. But then after the NAPLEX is over, it's like, wow, what do I do? So that's why I had to be a fitness instructor, because I'm like, I don't know what else to do with my free time. So I think that's like just figuring out a trade-off and a balance on your relationships.
Awesome, thank you. We have another question from Juan. As you have progressed in life, how have you been able to maintain that balance?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't want it to seem like I have this like perfect formula for balance. I definitely don't. It's from a lot of like learning, and like I've gone through a lot of struggles. I've dealt with anxiety. And I think it's figuring out and learning from them, so that refine, reflect, and repeat. You're not going to have everything perfect the first time, but realizing what works for you. Like, I know procrastinating for me, like then that makes my anxiety so much worse. So figuring like planning ahead, that's different ways to, avoid that anxiety. I think too, I've been in just hard places like during fellowship with applying for jobs. That was a really hard time in my life because I didn't necessarily, I had this time off between fellowship and jobs and starting my full-time job. It was like a blessing in disguise, but I didn't have a job like lined up right after fellowship. I had been applying a lot, but received a lot of rejections, which was like hard to like maintain that balance. So there's definitely times when you're having to apply an interview, you're going to be spending a lot more of your energy there. But I think recognizing when you feel like it's negative or toxic to your like emotions, because definitely getting all those rejections, it was, and then stepping back and realizing what's in your control and what's out of your control. And then what's in your control is how you react to things. And I think trying to have a better mindset, positive, realizing it, reflecting, and directing your energy elsewhere.
I love that. You just really hit a lot of things on the head, and I think dropped a lot of gems. That's advice that I was given actually by like my therapist, is like to control the controllables and just like stress over what you can, but like not over the things that are out of your control. So
Exactly.
that's great advice. Sorry, Matt.
No, you're fine. Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. But this next one, I'll definitely take because I can relate. And that's from Laura. She's saying that she wants to know any recommendations on possibly starting her fitness goals. So she's saying that it's kind of hard and she doesn't really have time, or feels that she doesn't have time. So I want to see if you have any recommendations on that.
Yes, I love that. So I know it is definitely hard and super challenging with having a busy schedule, but I think one thing for me, and the reason why I became a fitness instructor, I really liked fitness classes, because I feel like one, when you sign up for the class, it holds you accountable most of the time to show up at that time. So even if it's like early in the morning, which I don't like doing in the cold in New Jersey, but in the summer I'm better at going in the mornings. So one, signing up for classes that'll hold you accountable, and then that also will tell you what to do if you don't feel like you know what exactly what workouts to do. That'll kind of guide you on that. Another thing is finding someone to work out with. I think it's always more fun to work out with a partner, friend, whatever. So finding someone that kind of has a similar interest, and then holding each other accountable, I think will help. I think it's really just, it is the hardest part, is like getting started, but really trying to build a routine, because once you do something for so many days, weeks straight, then you're not going to have to think second about it. So try to find any of those little tips to get started, and then I promise it'll be basically second nature after that.
Awesome. I think it kind of goes into our next question that Megan asked. And I don't know if y'all know Megan, but she is a fitness guru. She's amazing. So shout out to you. And I actually do have the same question too. So what steps did you take to become a fitness instructor? And how did you balance teaching and also doing your fellowship and being successful?
Yes. So it was something I definitely always had interest in, being a dancer my whole life. When I started taking bar classes, I was like, I love this. It kind of gives you that taste of the dance background. And then another big thing for fitness with me. So I've recovered from an eating disorder, and I think maintaining, like really developing that healthy relationship with fitness to feel stronger and not like working out for other like negative reasons. I think that's what else like kind of helped me become like really passionate about fitness and like helping other people kind of work out for those same motivation reasons. So specifically what I did, when I moved to New Jersey, I knew like no one besides my husband. We weren't married at the time, but we were engaged. So my fiance at the time, like he's great and all, but like I need girlfriends. I need to like meet more people, get out. I was working from home remotely during my fellowship. So I just kind of started like hopping around at different fitness studios to find a culture I liked, a community that like I felt like I fit in with. And so I ended up finding the studio that were like women entrepreneurs, like very similar age, like interest. So I was like, okay, I really like this place. Maybe they'll be open to training me. So they were like looking for new instructors. So they were open to training. I'm trying to think. I started training in like the end of October, beginning of November, and then started teaching in January. So it's like 2.5, 3 months, like give and take. It's definitely a lot harder, a lot more time consuming than I ever thought. It's kind of like one of those things like studying for the NAPLEX is like kind of comparable, like a big goal that you have set for yourself. And you're like, wow, this was a lot. I didn't recognize that. Like I would spend all nights, like for hours, like just practicing different things because you're thinking through so much. But once I like got there, like I can plan a class in 15 minutes, like it's nothing, it's just second nature. So I think at first it was definitely a lot of kind of sacrificing, like spending my time on weekends, like training and doing that versus other things for myself. So I think it's like kind of giving up, like sacrificing some things. And then just like balancing that with the fellowship. My fellowship was basically all remote. So it was easier kind of then. I have a pretty good schedule right now. I'm going in the office 2 to 3 days a week. So I only do evenings and weekend classes. And I think now where I don't have to prep as much, it's like much easier. And honestly, it's my time away from work that I really enjoy. I've made so many friends through it. So I get to connect with people that I really enjoy. I get to work out myself. So now it's like kind of my own like way of practicing self-care.
I love that. Gonna take notes and definitely ask you, and I'm sure Megan will once the time comes with fellowship season.
I did see, okay, Joseph, I love that comment. So I actually teach reformer Pilates now, and it's very similar to solid core. So you should come check it out sometime.
That's awesome. Let's see, did anyone else have any questions that they would like to come off mute or maybe put in the chat? Awesome.
I'll
Go
ask a question. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so
ahead.
all right, cool. All right. So yeah, I'll ask a question, Megan. Going back to your slides where you were kind of talking about like the 5 points to kind of help you in that light. One of them were rest. And I know you kind of even hinted at it, saying that it's kind of hard. I mean, that's hard for literally any pharmacy student. So really my question is like, what would your advice be on students who can't necessarily get that rest? Like, you know, sometimes even if you plan ahead and you try to do everything you can, you can't get a full night's sleep because it's like you can't get everything done in a day. So like, what would be your advice to students who are kind of battling with that rest?
Yeah, I definitely thinking back to my times in pharmacy school, especially the night, like long late nights, not studying and stuff. So I think ultimately, like you said, there's only so much time in a day. It's a lot in pharmacy school. So I think it's like not creating a habit of it. Like everything is in moderation and balance. So if it's like one night that you have to stay up later or wake up earlier to study, like that's just a sacrifice. Like you're just gonna have to do that. You're gonna have to sacrifice a little bit of sleep one night. But I think it's when it becomes every night that you're like not sleeping, and that kind of leads to another thing. Like some people struggle with insomnia, especially definitely with stress and anxiety. But I think when it becomes a reoccurring cycle, then that's kind of where it really leads to have those more like negative impacts. But I think it's important, if you do have like a little streak where you're studying and staying up later, then it's like, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm setting like a reminder on my phone to get in bed at this time. Maybe not studying as much like the next night, but you really have to kind of set that boundary. That's kind of in those steps, like setting that boundary. Okay. And honestly, guys, like at the end of the day, people are not going to look back and be like, so what grade did you get on that one exam? Or like, I couldn't even tell you my NAPLEX scores. I know I passed. I passed the law exam by like maybe 2 points. So like no one, I know it's so hard because I felt the same way. I'm like, oh, I need to make like all these grades. I need to be like top of my class. But like it really, in the grand scheme of things, it's not worth like sacrificing your own personal like well-being and health just for that. So please, if anything, take that. I think that's really one of the most important things, like thinking back. Like I would cry leaving exams. Like don't waste your tears on that. Yes, exactly. For fellowship interviews, no one cares what grades. Like it's, you have to realize like that's where it kind of comes in prioritizing like what's most important and the skills that really, like I think I'm very successful in my fellowship and job, and like I still got C's in pharmacy school in certain classes. Like it's okay. It's like bringing it back, that comparison, got to reel that back in.
Right. We love that. Thank you so much, Dr. Khaleifeh. Does anyone else have any other questions they want to add or ask? Sorry.
Yes, Betty, correct. It was so good. Yes.
Well, I just want to go ahead and say, on behalf of everyone, thank you so much, Dr. Khaleifeh, for joining us today. You've definitely highlighted the importance of restoring balance and how that really promotes positive physical health, but also mental health. I think we can all take a little, some of these gems away with us today. If anyone wants to like review this later on, we'll have this recording up on YouTube very shortly. And again, thank you, everyone. We hope you get to utilize these tips and tricks throughout the week and throughout the rest of your, I guess, academic career. And I guess if you're going into a real career soon. Alrighty, everyone. We hope you have an amazing night. Stay tuned for more from the Pharma Collective.
Yes, thank you all so much for having me, and best of luck throughout the rest of pharmacy school and fellowship.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you, Megan. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.